Hey, it's James from Marketing for Restaurants, and welcome to episode 82 of Secret Sauce, the Restaurant Marketing Podcast, the third installment in the 4 Ps of restaurant marketing.
Some restaurants are quiet, lose money, and the owner works 70 hours a week. Other restaurants are busy, profitable, and the owners work a few hours a day. What's the difference? They have a secret sauce. Join James from Marketing for Restaurants as he helps you come up with your recipe for restaurant success. Your secret sauce.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So we covered off on price last time, and we've started to talk about place, and we're starting to discover that place isn't as simple as you might have thought it was. And so we've got a couple of other things that we want to delve into about place because I think it's really important. And the next thing that we want to talk about is franchising, because so many people run one restaurant in one place, and that limits you to the number of people that you can serve. It limits you to the number of meals you can do on a daily, weekly, yearly basis. It puts a cap on the amount of profit that you can make. And I saw today there was an article in the news about Guzman and Guzman. They are raising on the stock exchange. I think they're looking to raise something like $23 million. There isn't anyone in the world who's been able to raise that kind of money for a portion, and it's not even a majority shareholding, for a portion of a restaurant business that is single location. It's always, they've got 10, 20, 50, 100, 1,000 restaurants. So why is that? It's because if you can run a restaurant and it is mildly profitable, if you can replicate that, it can become incredibly profitable. And that's for a couple of reasons. Firstly, you're going to get economies of scale. You're not going to be ordering chicken for one restaurant. You're going to be ordering chicken for 50 restaurants. That makes you a big customer. That means that you're going to be getting the best pricing. And that will go through all of your food costs, your cleaning costs, all of the things that it is that you do. Secondly, you'll get economies of scale in the things that you do. So you might be able to have a marketing team. You might be able to have a HR team. And the HR team are going to say, right, let's look at the way that we hire. Let's try and start finding people who are going to be a good cultural fit. Let's start really defining the culture. And they're going to be beavering away, doing all of these sort of culture things that you as a business owner never really had the time nor the expertise to do. It's highly likely that that's the case. But now that you've got 10 or 15 restaurants, you really need someone who's ticking the box as far as the HR issues go. And I'm not talking about the compliance hiring. I'm talking about making sure that you build a strong culture that's a competitive advantage for you. So all of a sudden, you're hiring great guys and gals. They're working really hard because they love what it is that you're doing, and they love the fact that they can work in that restaurant. And so the productivity goes up. They stay longer. So your training costs go down. Now you're getting the economies of scale. So why is it that franchising or scaling out the business, why is it that it is tackled by so few restaurant owners? And this is an easy one. It's bloody hard to run a restaurant by itself. And most people, probably I think 90 to 95% of restaurant owners, think that if first prize is running your own restaurant, second prize would be running too. That would be the last thing that they would want. The time, the stress, the managing the people, all of these issues, they would just be too difficult for one person to manage. And we go back to my friend in Perth who I said, he was talking about the 3 restaurants that he owned, and he said there was one restaurant that was really good and two that weren't. The funny thing was, it was always the restaurant that he was in. He would go to a restaurant that was having problems, fix those problems up, motivate the staff, give them a bit of a kicking, get them to do what it was that they needed to be doing. Then he'd have to go to another restaurant where there was a new fire, an issue with customer service, or someone had just left, or something had gone wrong. And he would go there and he'd turn that around in a couple of days. He'd spend a couple more days there, and then there was a fire at the third place. And all he was doing was running between 3 restaurants, continually putting out fires. Why was that? No systems in place, no clear expectations about what the team were meant to do, no culture, none of the kind of things that are fundamental when you start to look to grow your business. And I think it's my advice, my humble opinion, that any restaurant that you run, you should aim to franchise it. Now, I'm not saying that you should franchise it, but you should aim to have it ready to franchising. You should have the operations manual all done. The policies and procedure manuals are sitting there. The hiring process is done. If you've got a hiring process and you've got a career progression so that you've got someone who is a manager, then maybe they can do the hiring. And literally, you will do yourself out of a job if you do this bit well enough. You will just sit back and collect the money. Now, it may not be profitable to full-time support you. That's fine. You now have the option. You can work 20 hours a week to earn a little bit more cash, make it sustainable, or you could work 40 hours or 60 hours and be making a fortune with 60 hours if everything else is running really well, because you're going to be working on the business, not in it a lot of that time. Or you can open a second restaurant. And once you've proven that that second restaurant will work, then you can do a third, then you can do a fourth. And before you know it, you've gone from 4 to 14 and from 14 to 50. And now you're making really, really serious money. And so franchising is a really good way of increasing the number of people who can get access to your product. And it's interesting. So one of the president of Coke, Robert Woodruff, he said that his goal was to put a Coke within arm's reach of everyone in the world. And I think they've probably pretty much done that. That's saturation market coverage. Anyone who wants a Coke can have a Coke. So you've removed a lot of the barriers to getting a Coke. You know, hey, I can get one. It's easy for me to get one. Now I just need to want one, which for the marketing people, that makes it a lot easier. You know, their job's a lot simpler. And it's interesting, the other side of that coin is, of course, you've got chains that are incredibly aggressive, and we're thinking Domino's, we're thinking of you here. In Australia, they've opened up restaurants everywhere, and in fact, too many restaurants. So what they're doing is they're actually cannibalizing sales. So they'll open up Domino's that is too close to other Domino's. It might be in between two. And so they're taking 20% of the customers from a Domino's. And of course, it's a franchise. So they haven't differentiated on why they're great. It's Domino's. It's the same from any store. It's a franchise. It's meant to be the same across the entire network, which means that they've cannibalized same-store sales. And that's one of the key metrics for the health of a franchise, is that, you know, if they're growing same-store sales, then in theory, each of those franchisees should be making more money. And as you decrease same-store sales, that means that they're losing money, and that is sad times, and people get upset when that's happening. And that's the process that Domino's is going through now. They're really struggling with, where are we going to put another Domino's? We've put them in everywhere where people need them. So now they've opened too many. Now, another thing to think about is who is selling your product. So let's just say you've got a $25 meal voucher. Is that available in the local cinema? Do you come up with a menu that is very quick and easy for people who are buying tickets to the movies? You might have an independent cinema. Those guys are really easy to work with because they're keen to do deals. It's a little bit harder when there's a chain, but still not impossible, but a little bit harder. Do they want to sell a meal and a movie deal? Do you want to sell a movie and a meal deal? So we've done a little bit of an extension on the product. So the product now includes a movie. You've come up with a menu that's really quick, so that someone sits down and they say, my movie's starting in an hour, and you say, nope, no worries. Pick an entree, pick a main, and they'll be brought out very quickly for you, sir. pretty easy to do, and you're getting incremental revenue because you're picking up customers who you wouldn't have had. And one of the great things about talking to so many restaurants is, there's people who are doing deals with sports clubs. One of the things, your kids go along and they play the sport on the Saturday morning or the Sunday morning. And at the end of it, there's always, the coach's award and the best on ground and all of those sort of things. And invariably, it's a voucher for your son or daughter to go along to a restaurant. Now, I am surprised that not more restaurants do this because it's an easy marketing thing. Those kids never go in and get a free meal. They go in and get a free meal with their siblings. So now you've got to buy, if it's a $10 meal, you've got to buy however many kids you've got in there. And are the parents going to not eat? Highly unlikely. So you might have a free $10 voucher, and the parents, when their kid's name gets called out, they're kind of happy that they're getting the award, but they're like, oh God, this is going to cost us. So the $10 free voucher costs $40 by the time you go to the restaurant and everyone gets fed, not just little Johnny who won his best on ground award. So you've actually got, now the place is still a restaurant, but the product, which is that sports voucher, which you're giving away for free, but because you know that it's worth on average $25, $30, $40, you're probably tracking that in your POS system. You create a special discount, $10 discount. You can see how much they get redeemed with, and you'll know the total value of that purchase. You can work out the profitability of this sort of stuff, which is pretty cool. Now, one of the other things that I always think is important to think about is, are you in a tourist area or non-tourist area, or is there a mix? Because marketing to those people is very, very different. A tourist may be looking for a taste of home. They might be a little bit homesick. They may be looking for the local cuisine. Regulars, on the other hand, are probably going to be looking for something that's very different. And so they need to be treated differently. They're going to want, they want that feeling of belonging in a place, the food that they're comfortable with. You might remember their name, you might remember their wine, you might remember their favourite meal, their spouse's details, anniversaries, those sort of things. So if you're in a non-tourist area, then the CRM component of what it is you do, the customer relationship management, that's really important. And customer relationships management, people get wrapped around the axles about that and they go, wow, we don't have the time to do that. Well, restaurants have been doing that since forever because it's a fancy name for saying a really good maitre d'. The guy front of house who you may not remember the guy, but you know that he's a regular. And so you shake his hand, you greet him, you give him the best table. You bring out, you might comp a beer for him. Whatever it is that you're doing to make those customers feel so much better, they're the kind of things that you want to be thinking about. Tourists, on the other hand, they are very SEO driven. You might be running Facebook campaigns. Is there a language barrier that you need to be thinking about? Language is one of those things that we just, people just assume that it's not that much of a problem. So good Chinese restaurants will have a menu that's in Chinese. They pick up the people who are looking for something that's familiar. That's not the locals, that's the Chinese tourists, and the local Chinese, of course. So how is it that you're positioning yourself? And remember when we talked about it right back at the start, what is the product that you sell? The place is a part of that because that dictates the demographic. Of course, unless you're a food truck, in which case you can move to a better demographic. But you want to be thinking about, are there tourists in the area? What is it that I'm doing to drive those tourists to our restaurant? What is it that I'm doing to drive the regulars? In general, you'll want a mix of them. When disasters like SARS or 9/11 occur, the tourist trade can collapse. Now, it doesn't happen that often, but it can still collapse, and it might be 2 or 3 or 4 months before those tourists comes back. If you've got a strong list of regulars, and you might have regulars who come in, you might be quietly just collecting those emails, and you might never email them out because it's like, you know what, we're tourist focused. Because a lot of the time, tourists are probably less cash sensitive. They've probably got more dollars in their pocket that they're willing to spend. They've been saving all year for this, and they want to. They want to have the best seafood platter that they can get. If you've got that email database, then when the disaster comes and the tourists aren't coming, then of course you've got the option to send that email out. And I think that that's really important. Now, last but by no means least, is takeout or dine-in? Well, we got a bit to talk about with this. And I think that it breaks down into 3 key segments. So the first one is dine-in. And that when most restaurant owners, when they think about their restaurant, they're thinking dine-in. The second one is delivery. And that is a completely separate business because it's got a logistics chain in there that is just awful. You've got to have delivery drivers. You've got to have a mechanism to get the food from them. What is food? Well, it's very time sensitive. You can't leave your food sitting there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. The longer it is, and then of course you've got the delivery time. It might be a 20-minute delivery time. If they're doing 3 or 4 deliveries in that run, your food may be sitting in some sort of bag for an hour and a half. Think about that. So you've got all of these logistics problems which aren't insurmountable, but they fundamentally need to be addressed. Too many people say, well, I'm going to do delivery, and they don't put any thinking into it. We'll do it on nights when we're quiet and a couple of the waitresses out the front can do the deliveries. Well, it doesn't work like that. It's a lot more complicated. And we're seeing some restaurant owners who are doing some really putting in a lot of thought because they want to be able to provide a better service than the Uber Eats guys and the Fedoras and the Deliveroos, because at the end of the day, it's their brand and they're responsible for all of the customer service. If they're responsible for the customer service, they may as well be actually providing that customer service. That just makes it easier. Now, of course, you've got those guys in the middle and they're the pickups. Takeout food can be a significant portion of your profitability if you make sure, because you got to remember, if you're really busy on a Friday and Saturday night, then your takeout business is probably going to be really busy on a Friday and Saturday night. So you've got these 2 businesses that are a little bit competing, and you want your kitchen, it works really well when your kitchen, when front of house is full steam ahead, everyone's sitting down, everyone's having a great time, everyone's being managed, and you don't need to cook one more meal, but you've got spare capacity. And that's when pickup and takeout works a treat, because you don't want to be doing things like cooking food for delivery or takeout, which means that the food for front of house is going to take longer, which means that you can't turn the tables as often. This is one of the big things. It's like, well, we're not going to turn the tables. Well, if you did turn the tables, if you went from 1.1 or 1.2 to 1.8, that's a 60% increase. Well, my number's a bit rough, but it'll be about a 60% increase in revenue. Interesting. What you need to be thinking about is the throughput in the kitchen. And we've had some people in who've spoken about that. How do you make a high throughput kitchen? That's one of those things that you want to be thinking about. If you don't have any spare capacity, then don't do it. Or here's the kind of thing that you can do. You can say, we love providing our amazing pizzas, but we only deliver Monday to Thursday. Now, there will be someone who dines once a fortnight, once a month, and he's like, I'm just going to get takeout. I'll get them to deliver it to me, or I'll pick one up on the way home. So how do you approach each of those 3 markets? Because they're very different. If you're providing an experience that's fundamentally around your product, your environment, the place, all of those sort of things, and you control a lot of that. There are some problems with that though. There are some friction, and we talked about them. Who's going to be the designated driver? We haven't talked about who's going to be looking after the kids. Do you have a play area for the kids? That's one of the parts of the product that can make a fundamental difference in the price. The closest restaurant to us, we don't go there very often because we've got kids who are well behaved, but they have a kids' playground now. And we did go there when the kids were little because we didn't go there that often because it was actually quite expensive, but they weren't selling food. They were selling the opportunity for mummy and daddy to sit down for 30 minutes and have a sensible adult conversation without the kids, flicking food all over the place. So the kids could go and play in the playground. Delivery is a fundamentally different product. I'll be sitting at home with a bottle of red, watching Netflix and eating the Chinese or the Indian that has been delivered to us. And it's great because we can get the first drink down range before the food's even arrived. So we'll probably have a beer to kick off with. you can only slightly tell how ingrained this process is for us on a Friday night. It is like clockwork. We really, really, really want that convenience. We, on occasion, we have gone and picked it up, but it's not frequent. It's not something that we would do on a regular basis because effectively I'm lazy and we are buying an experience where we want to sit down and relax after a hard week's work. We're looking at the 4 Ps. What is the thing that you can do? And I think that the big thing here is the ability to offer a pickup option that differentiates on price. So Uber Eats charges a delivery fee to the customer, and on top of that, they charge their massive clip through to you, the restaurant. And that's probably 35%. And of course, you don't get the email address. We all know how that is just absolutely horrific and complete madness. Let's just move on from that. Now, my thing is that gives you a whole heap of room to play with. So rather than having an Uber Eats guy come in and pick up the food, why don't you get the customer to come in and pick up the food? Now, they can get a $5 delivery fee. That's no longer going to get charged to them. So if the customer's prepared to pick up, then straight up, no delivery fee. Now, but you've got to remember the only difference between the customer coming to you and an Uber Eats guy coming to you is 35% in the email address. So you may use Frollo for pickups only. You get the email address, epic, but you've now got 35% to play with. So are you going to offer a straight up 20% coupon? I don't know, but this is one of those things that you're now offering an alternative where you're quite a lot more competitive on price and you're building that customer relationship. And on top of that, the customer gets to come in. You get to eyeball the customer. You have to say, how is it? You get to see your regular customers on a weekly or fortnightly basis. How was it? And this is the thing that is just so why I get excited about this. Because you can say, oh, Tom, there's something a little extra in there. Now we're working on a Sichuan pork ribs. I just made that up. So I've given you just a small tasting of it. I just really like some feedback. Is this something that you would like? Now, he feels like he's one of your beta testers, much more likely to be a repeat customer. You're building a much stronger brand. And it's because of the fact that he came into your restaurant and you can see him. And there's lots of little things that you can do in that space, which I think is really cool. So it's one of the things that you want to think about. Have a really good think about whether you're dine-in only. We're seeing people who are going to delivery-only restaurants, potentially doing 2 or 3 brands out of the one kitchen. And we're also seeing people who are they're dropping the delivery component and making it pick-up only. If your food is good enough, then people will come and pick it up. I will get off my lazy ass to come to your restaurant to get the food if there is a good enough reason. If I've seen something and I've just thought, you know what, that looks completely epic. If you're cooking sugar egg puffs and it's close, and I know that, look, they probably don't travel that well. A Chinese is one of those meals that doesn't, sort of live too well in the, it's not that good the next day. Pizza, of course, is, and Indian just gets better and better with age. But, the sugar egg puffs, I would go there for the first, just to get that because that would be epic, and I know our family would love that. We'd probably eat the dessert first because it was most important. So yeah, something to really think about it, bearing in mind that when you do the delivery component, you either need to think about the transport, warehousing and logistics of it all, or you need to pay someone to do it. And that is going to cost you 35% plus their email address, which is a bit horrific. Now, have we done place to death? Have we covered everything around place? I think I have. If I've missed anything, let me know. Next up, promotion. So this is the marketing communications. So you're going to have elements of advertising, public relations, direct marketing, and also the promotion. Talk about promotion as in the marketing communications, but we're also talking about promotions as in come in, buy one, get one free, all of those things that you want to try and sort of avoid. So what is that mix? One of the things that I find really interesting is that you will get people, we've talked about it before, you make a big effort with a PR push. So you've spent quite a lot of money with a PR company, and you can probably do it yourself, It's not overly hard. Identify the places that you want to be featured in and then hit them up. get them to come in for a free meal. Same with Instagram bloggers, if they have a demonstrable ability to get people to come along into your restaurant. And I always say, we want people to mention an offer. So someone comes in and they blog about it and they say, this is the best place ever. Come on in, mention that I was there and get 10% off. Now, it's not about giving people 10% off. That's not what you're doing. You're encoding this because Instagram's very hard to get people off and it's very hard to track. But if, I saw you on bloody blah's Instagram feed and I know that there's a 10% off offer, then you know that that's where that customer's coming from. But one of the things that people do is they'll spend all of this money on a PR company and they'll get written up in a big website, maybe a traditional paper, maybe even a TV show. And then what happens is they get this massive influx of people, but that influx lasts a week. And then, gone. Because PR is so fleeting. So how do you maximize your investment in public relations? How do you maximize the fact that you've been written up in a newspaper or on an online blog and you get all of that traffic? There's a couple of things that you want to do. And this is just old school online marketing. The first thing you want to do is you make sure that you got your Facebook pixel in there so that when people go to that website, you can remind them about it. Now, we were going to do a study on last year about the age, I think it was the top 20 cheap eats in Melbourne. And we went through and we had a look at who was running Facebook ads, because you can kind of tell from the engagement on the posts, who had a Facebook page, who had a website, what kind of website was it, who had the Facebook pixel, what booking system were they using. And the overwhelming issue that we saw with all of the restaurants that were in that list, not all, but about 85% of them, was that they didn't have a coherent plan to build a database. And it's not about the email address. It might just be the Facebook pixel. There were restaurants that I went to their website and thought, I want to eat there. I want to eat there. And it was Saturday night. I was in the city. I was by myself. So I had a bit more money to spend. And I chose a place based on the conversations that I'd had in the last week. I could have quite easily gone to one of those restaurants, but not one of them had reached out to me. I'd been to all of their websites. Not one of them has ever reached out to me on Facebook and said, hey, James, we know that you're interested at some stage in our restaurant. Don't forget, we've got these awesome insert meal here. Check it out. We'd love to see you come into the restaurant. Nothing. Nada. They haven't made that effort. And this is because they don't have an integrated marketing approach. And it's the same with advertising. You might do something completely mad like a radio ad or something like that. And you might get some interest from it, but unless they come into the restaurant, unless you get an email from them, you're not going to be able to go out and target them. So you're putting a lot more stress on your marketing budget because the ability for you to get that return on investment is so much lessened. So the example is, say you spend $10,000 and you get a press release done and it's released to a whole heap of media and you get written up in a newspaper and 2 big blogs and, 5 Instagrammers, and you've spent $10,000 on that. That's great. If you don't have the Facebook pixel, all of that exposure, unless they come in and you grab their contact details, you're never going to be able to remarket to them. Now, what was your conversion rate? Oh, so here's an interesting article about a new Chinese restaurant. Oh, it looks really good. I should go there. I would like to eat there. That sounds exciting. But I just forgot about it because I'm really busy. I need something to remind me about it because I'll be thinking, on the weekend, where can we go? What are we going to eat? I can't think of anything off the top of my head. That gets missed. So I could have been converted. A conversion is where you read that and you think, oh my God, I've got to go out. And, I'm either ringing them up now. Can I please make a booking for tonight? Or I've made an online booking for the weekend. Whatever it is, that's the conversion. All of those people who you haven't converted, how are you going to reach out to them again? Because they're still sellable. And I know that there are restaurants out there that I thought I'd love to eat there. I can't think of any of them at the moment because I'm thinking about the restaurants I've been thinking about over the last week. You need to be top of mind all the time, people, and far too many people don't put that in there. So you want to have a balance between the advertising for new customers. You're sub-niching. Are you targeting people with gluten-free? Are you targeting people with families? Are you targeting single males who are living by themselves and can't cook with a takeout deal? What is it that you're targeting? What's your approach to public relations? You know what? I'll do a podcast on public relations because we get quite a bit of PR here, and we can just share what we do to help restaurants. That would be a good one. I'll write that one down. Direct marketing, so emails that you're sending out. And of course, sales promotions. And I think rather than give a sales promotion, look for something with a high perceived value. So a wine that might have an RRP of $20 that you're picking up for $5 a bottle. So come on in tonight, order 2 mains, and we'll give you a $20 bottle. The restaurant that I was at on Saturday night, I know that there was some sort of promotion going on because I overheard the discussions that they were having about what wine is available with the offer. Have a think about how you're going to blend that mix because you want them to reinforce. You want to be sending out maybe a discounted offer or a value-added offer to someone who hasn't been in the restaurant in the last 90 days. You don't want to be sending that offer out to someone who was going to book on a Saturday night anyway. You don't want to be sending that out to your regulars. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be doing those things for your regulars. The things that make people regular is that when they've been there on that 3rd or 4th time and say, you've been here a few times, I'm the owner. I just want to say I really appreciate you coming in here. So the beers are on, this round of beers is on me tonight. Now, they're going to think, oh, wow, there's $20 worth of beers. Wow, I feel really good. That's the kind of thing that you want to be doing. What's the message that you're going to put out there? Are you cheeky? Are you formal? Humorous? How is it that you're going to communicate? That's another thing that you need to be thinking about. What channels are you going to do it in? So Instagram, Facebook. If you're only going to do one, and I think you should only do one until you start to get better at it, do Facebook. That's the main one to go to, I think. There are people crushing it on Instagram, but in general, people can do an average job with Facebook and get well and truly above average results with it. You don't have to be a rock star. Instagram tends to be a little bit more rock starish. How often are you going to communicate? And I think, if you've got multiple channels, so email, mail, there are still some people who send out letters, and sometimes they get quite a good response depending on what's in the letter. How frequently are you going to be doing that? Are you going to have someone, and don't forget, when we're talking about promotion, it could be someone standing out the front door with sliders saying, do you want to come in and try one of them? People might have already made up their mind, or you might have grabbed people who have already had dinner. They've just come out of a restaurant, 100 metres up the road. They're walking down, and it's like, wow, that slider's epic. They're going to feel like they owe you. They're going much more likely to come out. I'm a big fan of samples. I think that works really well. Someone standing out the front, if we'd like to come in, I'd really recommend this, which is code for this is our highest margin item. And, for a table of 4, happy to shout the first round of drinks. Now, one of the things that some people will do was they'll build that into the price. We're going to give away a beer with every meal. You've got the spruiker out there. Now, if he leaves people for a couple of minutes, if someone just walks straight in, there's no need to do that. Otherwise, happy to comp a few beers because you've already got them built into you. That's part of your conversion strategy. We're going to get so many people walking by here. We need to do something to increase the rate with which they stop, have a look at the menu, and come in. So there we have it. We've covered off on the product, what it is that you're going to produce. And it's not always the things that people put in their gob hole. There's plenty of other things that you can do around the product that's going to make it a lot more valuable for them. Price. Lots of things to think about with price. The main thing, price your menu, please. Work out how much it's costing you, both in time and in money, to create the food that you are creating. Place, lots of things, lots of places where you can find more customers, lots of places where you can sell your food, lots of places where people are going to consume your food. So it is a complicated matrix of things that you need to think about. And lastly, promotion. How is it that you're going to tell people about your restaurant? And I think promotion in a lot of ways is quite important because I've seen restaurants that don't have great food and they don't really have, and it is quite expensive, but they're incredibly successful. And that's because they've got an amazing story. Like the food's not amazing, but their story's amazing. And that is told really well. So people believe that it's a successful restaurant and they kind of go there because of that. And, the shed at Dulwich is exactly the example of that. And the last thing I would finish off with is you don't want to be the best restaurant that no one's ever heard of. Too many people. The restaurant that I was in on Saturday night, it was about a couple of hours eating. We then spent 2 hours talking about restaurant marketing. And I said straight up to the chef and the investor, you got one problem, massive problem with the menu. And they said, oh, what is it? And I said, it's too cheap. For the value, for the culinary technique that you displayed, for the innovation, you need to be charging more. And they're looking at ways to grow that because of the fact that it was a Saturday night and they weren't full. So an easy problem to fix because it's epic food that's really well priced. So massive amount of value, probably too much. You don't want to be the best restaurant that no one's ever heard of. And that is their thing. They are one of the best restaurants that no one's ever heard of. We're going to help them get the word out. So that's about it. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you now have a good understanding of the 4 Ps. So product, price, place, and promotion. It should trigger some questions for you and some ideas about how you can better generate more revenue and, of course, generate more profit. If you've got any questions, hit us up on Facebook, LinkedIn, having lots of conversations with people on LinkedIn. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. So if you want to email us, you can do it. Old school email, morecustomers@marketingforrestaurants. That's about it. Oh, let us know what topics you would like us to cover. Well, I'm starting to reach out and say, what would you like to hear us talk about? As the podcast goes from strength to strength to strength, last week we had, I think there was a day where we had 1,500 downloads, which was completely insane. Very popular. So thank you for all of the good reviews. If you want to write a review in iTunes, that would be fantastic. That really helps us to spread the word. Of course, if you see one of the crazy Facebook Lives that I do, tag a mate in who should be seeing this sort of thing. Yeah, failing that, hit us up on LinkedIn. Happy to field some questions. Apart from that, you have a glorious day. Hopefully it's really busy and super profitable. Bye.
Want more customers for your restaurant, cafe or takeout? Every month, our marketing tools and information are used by thousands of restaurant owners just like you to help them find more customers and turn them into repeat customers. All of our tools and information is designed specifically for restaurant owners. We know you don't have a lot of time to spend marketing or learning complicated procedures, so our tools are quick and easy to use. If you're looking to increase your revenue and profits or want to work less hours, check out marketingforrestaurants.com.